Why is it that the pro-abortion side are so effective at getting their language into these ballot measures?
Yeah, I mean, it's the abortion lobby that's behind these things. It's the ACLU, it's Planned Parenthood, it's George Soros. He's the one who's thrown a lot of money at these measures. And so they're really in the driver's seat for defining these measures, and they do it very intentionally. They are very crafty when they put the language together with these measures. And so when you read them on their surface, they seem a little deceptive. A lot of them use the word viability, but when you read it in its full and you understand what they mean, you understand the legal context that exists in this country and in different states, essentially they're going to use the word viability, but this allows abortion in the second trimester, all throughout the third trimester.
Hello and welcome to the Ann and Phelim Scoop. I'm Ann McElhenney.
Yes, and what a week we've had.
It's gone a bit autumnal, by the way. I just wanted to mention that. Do you notice that? It's just got a little autumnal here in Los Angeles, which is great. We had an earthquake this morning. Go on, Phelim. Yes?
Technically, it wasn't this morning.
Technically, in the recent past, we've had an earthquake.
Yes,
This has been recorded in advance of the show.
Yes. So yes, last week we had an earthquake, our biggest earthquake yet.
5.1.
Yes, we're pre-recording this show because
one cat reacted, one cat did not. Anyway, it's information.
Top cat ran like a bat out of hell.
Yeah, the other cat had some cream and actually I think was sort of slightly druggy as a result. Anyway,
what's the origin of bat out of hell? Would all creatures not want to flee out of hell?
Okay, so we bring you the latest today, Phelim. About what, Phelim? What are we talking
What's
about?
on the scoop
this week?
Well, we're going to tell you the latest news about the October 7th play. By the way, that's Anne coughing because the air in Los Angeles is thick with smoke from all the wildfires that we have.
So if I suddenly go missing, it's because I can't stop coughing. It's nothing else wrong with me except for the fact that there is a big problem with the air at the moment.
Yes. What else is on the show? Kamala Harris. We still want to. I think we are uniquely positioned to bring you some truth.
Some fact checking, actual fact checking.
Actual fact-based fact checking.
Yes.
About the abortion debate and how abortion was misrepresented in the debate.
And what's legal in America.
And what's not. So Kamala Harris said in the debate that abortion abortion at any point and the killing of babies after birth is definitely not allowed in America. And the ABC fake moderator supported her in their fake news. So we bring you the truth about comfort care.
Mm-hmm.
And now that abortion is in the state hands, what's the reality of abortion in America? We break down all the referendums and state initiatives that are going to be on your ballot paper
in November.
Yeah.
And we'll get an expert opinion on pro-lifers' chances in the various states' initiatives. We have a very interesting interview that you're going to really want to hear to break it all down because this is huge, and abortion is on the ballot in 11 states.
Yeah,
in 10 states. In one state, there's 2 ballot initiatives.
Oh wow!
But before we get to that, let's just quickly remind people of the big project that we're doing this year, which is October 7th, the play.
Yes.
Which is coming to a campus near you very soon.
Yeah, it's going to be in Princeton on September the 24th and UCLA on October 7th. We're going to put the links to tickets in the show notes. We're going to put the links up on the screen now for tickets. So please, but also it's important. We do need your donation. I mean, these are professional actors, professional producers, professional sound people. This costs serious money. Security is serious. It is a serious issue. Don't forget, we went to Israel after October 7 during a war, interviewed people who just survived the worst day of their lives. They felt it was important. They told us their story. They trusted us to tell their story. We told their story. It's amazing. It's an amazing
And
play.
Audiences that saw the play in New York, there was absolute unanimity among them that this play needs to keep going and going and going.
Let's play Abby Poland Goldberg, Hirsch Goldberg's aunt, Hirsch Goldberg, who was one of the hostages who was murdered a few weeks ago. You remember Hirsch, he lost his arm and then he was murdered just as he was about to be rescued.
A young American citizen, 23 years old.
An American citizen was murdered abroad and nobody knows his name. But we're going to change that. So his aunt and cousin came to the October 7th play. Let's
listen to them.
My name is Abby Poland. This is my
Madison.
We randomly came because we heard about this play October 7th. My nephew is Hirsch Goldberg Poland, who is a hostage in Gaza, and we are trying to keep up all the awareness and advocacy for Hirsch and all the hostages to be released. We're spending full time doing everything we can, and Madison as well, and the rest of our family members, aside from just Hirsch's parents and sisters. We're all doing what we can, and I have incredible respect for Phelim and Ann, the producers from Ireland, living in New York, for this production, because this is what Rachel and John are speaking to, keeping up the awareness and keeping your voice out there in a format to make sure we're doing everything we can for these hostages to keep their names and their stories out there, again, to bring them home and bring them home now.
And what did you think of the actors, the play?
I thought, I walked in here not really knowing what to expect of this, other than what I had heard walking in line before security, was that the script is the actual, not footage, the actual stories and clips from people's WhatsApps and cell phones of what was actually transpiring on October 7th, their own story of that day. And I thought the production, I was blown away by this. And I want this show to be all over the place. It should be seen, it should be heard in cities all over the world. Excellent job.
So please, go to october7theplay.com. Give what you can to help bring this play to campuses. We don't need to remind you how much misinformation there's been on college campuses in the last year.
And if you want to connect us with anyone on a college campus who would like to have the play go there, please do that, because this is what we're devoting a lot of time to. But equally important at the moment is the fact that abortion is going to be on the ballot basically in November in an awful lot of places. And before we kind of get to that, because we're going to have an interview in a few minutes, but before that, I think it's worthwhile stopping for a moment and remembering what Kamala Harris said at the recent debate.
During the debate, Kamala Harris denied that babies are killed late term or can be left to die after a failed abortion. She was even backed up in the second part of that point by the ABC moderator Lindsey Davis, who said there's no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Let's play those quotes just to show what they said. Let's hear Kamala first, and then fake ABC moderator Lindsey Davis.
Would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Okay, so no state in the country where it's legal to kill a baby after it's born. Let's get rid of that second piece of misinformation first, that lie first. So, as you know,
we wrote the book about Kermit Gosnell. We made a movie about Kermit Gosnell, a podcast. We've had a play. We've had an exhibition, in fact.
Crime scene exhibition,
exactly.
photo exhibition. Now, Gosnell, let's be clear, Gosnell was involved in
illegal.
A lot of illegal abortions. What he was convicted was mostly illegal stuff, right? Illegal abortions. So we're not bringing that up to support any argument from the debate. That's a completely different argument about how an abortion doctor in one of the most regulated states in the world was able to murder with impunity. But that's a different argument.
But something very interesting came up in the court case. I mean, it's the reason why we ended up spending years on this Gosnell case, because the court case was very valuable, because you had legal abortion doctors coming on, being asked for their thoughts about things. And
yes, they were asked to show what is a good abortion. So
describe a good abortion, basically.
Yes, and the reason they did that was to show the jury Gosnell did is terrible, and these are the good abortion doctors. And there was one called Karen Fuselin,
yes,
who was asked about what a proper legal abortion is, and we did basically a reenactment of her evidence for the Gosnell movie. The wonderful Janine Turner, you might remember her from that series. What's the series called? True North or no?
Something like that. Set in Alaska.
Yes.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of it, but fantastic. But Janine Turner was fantastic. Let's watch this clip of Janine Turner playing the role based on this transcript that we had heard in the court and were so shocked by. Let's watch that first.
So when you inject the fetus, do you put the needle here?
No.
Here?
Yes,
Right there. And that stops the heart.
that's correct.
And then you use forceps. You use these and you reach up in there and you grab a hold of an arm or a leg or whatever and you pull on it until it comes out or comes off. Correct?
That's correct. But with larger fetuses, they remain intact.
Of course, because the head's bigger. Makes it more difficult. What do you do then?
We use a machine to suction out the gray matter.
The gray matter, the brains. So you suction out the brains, and then what happens?
Then the skull collapses and the fetus can be removed.
Right. Now, isn't it true that sometimes in order to get the suction machine into the fetus, you have to use a pair of scissors to make a hole in the back of the neck?
Sometimes this happens, yes.
So before, when you said that you'd never cut the neck of a fetus...
I was referring to a live birth.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I get it now. Have you ever had a live birth during an abortion attempt, doctor?
No, I have not. Because we listened to the sonogram to ensure that the fetal heart has stopped.
Well, what if you made a mistake?
We don't.
Well, what if you did?
Objection. Hypothetically, Your Honor.
Your Honor, she's a medical expert. I'd like to have her opinion.
Overruled. I'm going to allow the question, but stay on point, counselor.
What would you do if the baby was out and it was breathing?
We would issue comfort care.
Comfort care. Can you define that for us?
That's keeping the fetus warm and comfortable. Eventually, it will pass.
Eventually, it would pass. So basically, you'd let it die. Seems like it'd be more humane to just take a pair of scissors.
Objection!
So, for those of you who are saying, oh, well, that's a movie, that's just a movie. The reason we put this in the movie was because of what was in the transcript, in the actual court, what was actually said in the court. And here's what was said in the court, Phelim. Why don't you play the court and I'll play the witness? And the witness in this case is, again, Karen Fuselian, who's an OBGYN.
Well, let's take it from the middle of that transcript there. So this is the Gosnell's defense attorney. You said this has never happened, but what is your obligation if in fact a baby is born alive?
It depends on the gestational age, but just, as a human being, you would want to at least comfort care. If it's in a hospital, you could potentially offer like over 23 weeks to resuscitate it. But, really just keep it warm, It will eventually pass.
Yeah. Now you could offer to resuscitate it, but apparently if the mother says no, then
I don't want that.
Yeah, then you
can neglect it to death.
You murder it. I mean, so if you left a baby out on the street or actually in your house in a room and neglected it for several days, eventually it will pass.
And by the way,
that's called murder.
And by the way, the same could be said true of any vulnerable human being. By the way, if you left an old person sitting outside without a drink, without hydration in the sun, they wouldn't last very long.
You leave inside as well. So, but again, don't believe us. Have a listen to former Virginia Governor Northam explain it very casually. Let's listen to that.
The infant would be delivered The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mothers.
And I think what's really important about the Governor Northam piece there is that he's a doctor. He really knows what he really, really knows what he's talking about. Extraordinary. And and then the added very, bizarre aspect to this is that after this interview, this shocking interview, there were calls for him to resign. There were big calls for him. But guess the first people who called for him to resign was Planned Parenthood. And why did they want him to resign, Phelim?
Well, he said the quiet bit out loud, He told the truth that they're not supposed to talk about. He told the truth about comfort care, about letting babies that survive abortion die, killing them. Killing them by neglect, but that's murder. If you have a baby and you leave it in your room and don't go to it for 4 days and it dies, that is murder.
You wouldn't have to wait that long, by the way. You wouldn't have to wait that long.
Listen.
This is
actually, I just want to say you did a whole thing about danger talk. It's in academic papers about the things that abortion doctors don't want to talk about in public and shouldn't talk about in public. And friendly academics call that danger talk. Northam got involved in danger talk.
He said the quiet.
The price.
Exactly. He said the quiet part out loud, as they say.
So the second piece of misinformation from the debate is Kamala Harris saying, there is nobody having an abortion up to 9 months in America. It just doesn't happen, right?
It's good to look at what the laws are in the United States, and it's quite surprising. And of course, the people who are in favor of all of this spend an enormous amount of energy and time hiding it.
Yeah.
But we're the unreported story society here, so let's get this particular unreported story out there in front of all of you. In 9 states in the United States, and the District of Columbia, so basically in 10 states, there is no limit of any kind on abortion. Those states.
When you say no limit,
there's no limit. There is no limit at all. You can have an abortion up to 9 months for any reason or no reason.
So you can have if you're dilate, as that famous exchange said, even if the woman has started to dilate.
Yeah, well, you heard what they said in that particular case, and I can't remember, was that Virginia? I think that might have been Virginia. Yeah. But let's list those states, because I think it's important for people to know, because maybe you're living in one of these places. So those places are Oregon, Alaska, Colorado, New Mexico, Michigan, Minnesota, Virginia, Washington, D.C., New Jersey, Vermont, Maryland, and Maine. Quite amazing, right? Yeah. So in those places, it is legal up to 9 months, but don't take our word for
it. Well, actually, funny, people say, well, it's legal, but no one actually does it, and there's no clinic that would actually
nobody would
do
actually
it.
do that.
I mean, and that's a fair.
Well, there's two things. There's two things to be said to that are important. Why would you have a law for something that never happens? Why do you need a law for something that never happens? That's the first one. But secondly, we have this, which is this incredible video that was just released quite in the last week from Students for Life, who decided to phone up one of these clinics and present themselves as one of these kind of people with this late-term abortion and see what happens. Let's watch this video. It is absolutely extraordinary, and it needs to be shared and watched by everyone, everywhere. Let's watch it now.
How can I help you?
I'm looking to have an abortion.
How far along are you?
I'm 34 right now. My boyfriend is kind of out of the picture now, so I don't really have any support.
It's a 4 to 5 day procedure. A needle is inserted through the abdomen and into the fetal heart. Lidocaine is injected, and that will completely numb the fetus. After that, we inject a medication called digoxin and another medication called KCL, which will slow and then stop the fetal heartbeat. And then we'll give you a medication called misoprostol. Misoprostol will sort of induce contraction, will assist you in sort of pushing in the induction, and then remove all of the products of conception. You're definitely going to feel discomfort and cramping, but we do give you fentanyl and Versed during the procedure. We specialize in later trimester care. Our doctor is very well versed in what he's doing, and he's very good.
So I'm not like a rare situation. Y'all help women this late in pregnancy all the time?
All the time.
So 34 weeks, and then by the time they got to her, it'd be 36 weeks. So, and as that lady said, it's not rare, and they perform abortions this late all the time.
Exactly. I think that's another part of it that I thought was really good, was where the woman said, yeah, no. And because I think the Student for Life woman, I haven't got the quote in front of me, but she says something like, does this happen a lot or whatever? And you went, yeah, oh, absolutely. This happens all the time. So what's interesting as well is So those states that we first mentioned that have no limit at all, they need to be added to. They have to be added to, because on top of them, where it's very explicitly said there's absolutely no limitation of any kind, there's another 10 states that say you can have an abortion up to viability. By the way, the doctor decides what viability is. There's no, which is, by the way, kind of bizarre, by the way. Surely viability is viability, but no, it's suddenly up to the doctor to decide when that is. But up to viability with exceptions. And the exceptions are these, and there's all kinds of different phraseology for the exceptions, of course, they do that. But health and life, health, which your health can cover a multitude, particularly mental health. And so basically, those states, these next 10 states, have abortion up to 9 months as well, if the doctor can come up with a reason. And it's all very subjective, all very, nothing has to be written in stone, because the doctor just knows everything, And those states are California, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Massachusetts, New York, and Washington State. I haven't done it just yet, but I'd really like to do that. I'd like to add up the populations of all those states where you can have an abortion up to 9 months and ask how many people are left. What percentage? What percentage of the country?
Maybe some mathematician out there would do it for us, actually. So it's Oregon, Alaska. Actually, we'll put them up on the screen now. Oregon, Alaska, Colorado, New Mexico, Michigan, Minnesota, Virginia, D.C., New Jersey, Vermont, Maryland, and Maine. And then you've got California, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Massachusetts, New York, and Washington. We'll put them up on the screen. If some very kind soul who's much better at mathematics than us could calculate
what percentage of the country are covered by this potential 9 month situation. But the other thing that I think is very interesting is, and many of you will have noticed this, and our very trusty producer who's here in the room with us just pointed out earlier, and very interesting, that when you're trying to find this information out, it's really, really difficult. And it's intentionally so. It's intentionally really hard. Yeah. But what I thought was interesting was, I was looking for this information myself recently, and the New York Times had helpfully created a whole lot of information about it. I haven't spent an enormous amount of time looking at the New York Times information. I kind of trusted it, but that's always a mistake.
Yes.
And just on a very cursory, I just checked a couple of states. And in the New York Times, I'm putting it up on screen, according to the New York Times, Maryland has a legal, you can have an abortion up to viability. A complete lie in the New York Times, a complete lie. The rules in the law in Maryland is no limits up to 9 months. And it's even proved by the Students for Life video. So that's the New York Times for you, Yeah. As we often make that joke, you had one thing to get right. You had just one thing to get right, and you couldn't get that right. And I think we know why you didn't get it right.
Yes.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny how when you make a mistake, the mistake you make is always in favour of Planned Parenthood.
Yes. So the one-way fact-checking, the one-way mistakes.
The other thing, and we're going to come back to this again, and I want to just take a little moment before the interview, but a tiny moment to remember another part of that very good video there from Students for Life. It's when the woman on the other end of the phone from the clinic in Maryland describes, which I'm kind of impressed actually that she did that, but I imagine that the Students for Life woman was very clever and managed to get her to do this, but She got her to describe how this abortion at 34 weeks would be performed. And I'll just remind you again what she said. She said, we'd insert a needle through the abdomen to stop the heart. Lidocaine injected to numb the fetus. They inject, so the first thing that they do actually, so the baby, you kind of got it upside down there, but the first thing that happens is that lidocaine is injected to numb the fetus, not kill the fetus, numb the fetus. So the fetus, apparently, according to this, wouldn't feel pain. So then
why do you need to numb it then? Oh,
I know. Why would you? I know. No, listen. But let me just keep going. Then inject digoxin and KCl. KCl is potassium chloride into the baby's heart. So, and then there's other stuff goes on. But I think what's interesting, and I really want to spend more time on this another day, but for right now, it's just so frightening to read that. It's so scary to read that, because I have a friend who I'm pretty convinced would be very much in favour of abortion. And I remember when he was having babies with his wife, and I remember him telling me, I remember it so well, I remember him telling me that he read Charles Dickens, to his unborn baby. And by the way, I'm all in favor of that. I thought that was beautiful. And he played Beethoven, and he was thinking, and he was really spending time and thinking about what music to play to the baby. Now, why would you read Charles Dickens to why would you do
Something
that?
that's not
Why would
human?
you do that?
Something that's
to
not human?
something, and then to that same something, to that same human being, by the way, that friend of mine, by the way, was identifying as a human being. That's why you wouldn't be reading Charles Dickens to a stone now, would you? So reading Charles Dickens to a human being, and then into that human being, you numb that human being, right? So the human being's still alive, and then you basically poison that person. While they're alive, they get poisoned with potassium chloride and digoxin. As I said, I'm going to come back to this again because I'm not a scientist, but I think we maybe should get a scientist to talk to us about those particular drugs.
Then you have to chop up the fetus, by the way, to get it out.
Yeah,
that's
another part of it.
Yes.
So we are now going to go over to an interview with Kelsey from the SBA list, from the Susan B. Anthony list.
Yeah.
Kelsey Pritchard, who is an expert on these ballot initiatives that are going to come in front of people in November. There are, I think, as I said, 11 of them. Yeah. 10 states. In one state, there are 2. But let's go over to that now.
And Kelsey will cut away the misinformation and tell us where each state is and where we are in November. So let's go over to that interview that we did earlier. So we're joined now by Kelsey Pritchard, who is the first ever director of state public affairs at the Susan B. Anthony list, which is really one of the biggest and most effective pro-life organizations, national pro-life organizations. She previously had worked as the director of communications for the governor of South Dakota and has extensive experience in public relations positions. Thanks for joining us, Kelsey. It's a very, very interesting time in the pro-life world. So tell us about this role at the Susan B. Anthony list. Well, tell people what the Susan B. Anthony list is. And this is a new position in the pro-life movement. Tell us about that, why it's needed.
Yeah, so SBA ProLife, we have grown a lot, and we have become an organization that's not only focused on national politics, but state politics as well, especially given the Dobbs decision. And we essentially exist to save as many lives as we can, as fast as we can, by recognizing the realities that exist politically across our country, whether it's in a specific state or nationally. And so our state team has grown since the Dobbs decision because, of course, that decision brought the issue of abortion back to the people at the federal and state level. Mm-hmm. And so our team has grown a lot. We have policy experts who are regional directors in the states, and my role is specifically public affairs, the PR end, and the messaging and reaching people to change more hearts and minds on the issue of abortion, and talk to people as well why the politics are important on the issue of abortion.
So, Kelsey, are we right that there are 11 ballot initiatives facing the different parts of the country in 10 states? There's 11 ballot initiatives, but in 10 states in November. Is that correct?
Correct. There could be up to 10 states that have abortion on the ballot. There are still legal challenges in Nebraska and South Dakota where, we hope and pray that we get a good result there and they won't be on the ballot. But potentially we have 10 states with a ballot measure. 6 of those are red states. And in the state of Nebraska, they could have 2 ballot measures. They could have a pro-abortion ballot measure that we have in every other state, as well as a pro-life measure that voters could pick from in that state.
Yeah. Let's dig into this a little bit because it seems, I don't know, with your hands all over the South Dakota initiative, because it's quite different to the others. Am I right about that?
On its surface, it is. You read the language, it's not the exact same language in South Dakota as you see in other states. The effect is very similar to what you see with the measures that are being proposed by the abortion lobby in Florida, in Arizona and other places. Essentially, in South Dakota, the ballot measure would allow all trimester abortion, just like all the others would. It would implicate parental rights and take away health and safety protections for women, and it would force taxpayers to fund abortion. And that's those are similar themes across all states that could have abortion on the ballot.
Why? Why is it that the pro-abortion side are so effective at getting their language into these ballot measures?
Yeah, I mean, it's the abortion lobby that's behind these things. It's the ACLU, it's Planned Parenthood, it's George Soros. He's the one who's thrown a lot of money at these measures. And so they're really in the driver's seat for defining these measures, and they do it very intentionally. They are very crafty when they put the language together with these measures. And so when you read them on their surface, they seem a little deceptive. A lot of them use the word viability, but when you read it in its full and you understand what they mean, you understand the legal context that exists in this country and in different states, essentially they're going to use the word viability, but this allows abortion in the second trimester, all throughout the third trimester. So they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing when they use the word individual or patient, and they refuse to use the word woman in these measures because they want minors to be able to have the right to abortion the same as women who are over the age of 18.
So, I mean, obviously it was amazingly good news when the Dobbs decision, came down. I mean, it was a great day and everyone celebrated. The news hasn't been great since, to be honest, right? So the 7 ballot initiatives that have so far come into on front of different states, all have been lost by the pro-baby side, by the pro-life side. Where are we going wrong, and what's going to be different this time with these potential 11 ballot initiatives?
Yeah, so the ballot measures that have been losses for us in previous years, some of those were ballot measures that were pro-life measures that failed to pass. But a few of them are similar to the ones that we're seeing this year. And the ones that are very similar in Michigan in 2022, they passed one of these. Last year in Ohio, they passed one of these. And so the abortion lobby would like us all to think that this is their foolproof strategy, that they cannot lose on the ballot on abortion. The truth is, though, that the dynamics are different this time and this year around this election year, because 6 of these states that could have abortion on the ballot are very red states, are pretty red states, especially Florida, that has gotten increasingly conservative under the leadership of Governor DeSantis. And so, there are different dynamics. The people in these states tend to vote more Republican, more conservative. And so I would say each of these red states, the ballot measure fights are winnable for us. Of course, it all depends what happens between now and Election Day, because, some of these states, they've had fights in court that have kind of put them from investing more of their time and resources into actually fighting the measures and educating the public. Well, now we have a final say in Missouri as of this week that it's going to be on their ballot. And so it really is going to depend upon if the GOP and Republican leaders all across these states are willing to get involved, lend their voice, educate on the issue.
Yes.
How we laughed.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, we're getting very old and very cynical around here,
I have to say, I predicted this. I remember saying before Roe was overturned, the people who will find the overturning of Roe most difficult are the Republican leadership and Republican politicians, because it was all very easy to be pro-life when Roe existed, because you could say, I am pro-life,
but I can't do anything.
But I can't do anything. The Supreme Court has tied my hands, and now you can do something, and now you have to do something and face the ballot box, and face. Well, not even actually facing the ballot box is one thing, but facing people at your nice dinner party, at your nice museum opening, at the ballet. At you don't get invited in NPR anymore, and you're socially ostracized if you support this legislation. So you're right. It's the Republican leadership needs to get behind. We remain somewhat skeptical.
But I think I think it's interesting that your appointment, because I think PR is where it's at, and I'm just wondering, have you in the PR war on this, I mean, it's very difficult to stand up against, very, very blatant lies that get very, very well supported by the media. So, for example, women die. I mean, it's very powerful. It's 2 words. It's really, really, really powerful. What can you do? Like, how can you take that on? Because it's such a simple, powerful, it's like, oh, well, I don't want anything to do with women dying. Oh gosh, I don't want, who's not. So when you start getting that, and it's tough. I mean, your side, our side, the pro-life side, the pro-baby side, it's very hard because then it gets all into this nuance. But women die. How can you effectively hit that one on the head?
Yeah, I would say that's actually been a really big focus of my job and our state affairs team, because you see this lie everywhere. You see this lie not only in the ballot measures, but on any race where the Democrat is running on the issue of abortion, and on any bill in the states or at the federal level. This is their line. They say, you must pass this all trimester abortion measure, vote for this person, support or not support this bill because women will die if you don't. And that is a lie. And we've been trying to unveil that this is, and just talk to people about this. This is misinformation that they're creating. This is a lie that is putting women in danger. It is what has have led women to sit in their cars and wait, and rather than to seek that emergency care right away. It is what has confused doctors and led some of them to turn women away when they needed care for that emergency situation. And something that we've tried to do, we've tried some policy solutions in this area, and some things are working in the states, thankfully. South Dakota actually passed the first med-ed bill in the nation. This is a bill where they created a training kind of education video for health professionals to make it very clear there's a life of the mother exception in the state like every other state. This is what this means for you. And that video is also available to the public. And then there are other states that have done similar things administratively. And those things are important, of course, direct education to the doctors and healthcare professionals, but most importantly, so the public knows that.
Well, just because it really does exercise me, and I'm really curious how you how you can how you deal with this. But so what they've done, and we this better than we do, but so often, and they've done it with the recent ads. Kamala Harris has it in her recent ads. Here's Joanne. I'm making up a name now because I can't remember the individual names. Here's Joanne, and then Joanne, or whoever it is shown then at a table or walking to her car or whatever, or sitting with her husband, in tears. I nearly died. I almost died. And I presume that you can't do anything about the Joanne story or the Mary story because of HIPAA. So that you actually can't actually. So it's an uncontestable
just to
story.
Explain. So they spin misinformation, but when you try and find out the facts behind the information,
you can't get them.
You're told no, the patient records are confidential.
Is that correct? Are we right about that?
I would say that when a woman tells a story like that, we generally take that as okay. We generally trust that, right? Yeah. Whether it. I'm sure there might be some people out there that would lie about that. I think some of those stories are genuine, and they're instances of medical malpractice.
Yes.
The Democrats take that and spin that and say that's because of Donald Trump. That's because of pro-life laws, anti-abortion males who are trying to control women.
I sorry to interrupt you. I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. It's actually as a result of Democrat pro-abortion misinformation and lies. You're confusing doctors. You're telling doctors that if you give this woman emergency medical treatment, you'll go to prison. And the doctors hesitate. Of course they hesitate. Or good doctors hesitate, by the way. Good, uneducated. And, if you're in an emergency room somewhere that doesn't have a lot of pregnant women, and this is new, what's the law? And suddenly it goes to the ethics board. I mean, there is hesitation, there is delay, and it's because of misinformation from the pro-abortion side, not because these are some kind of pro-life zealots who want this woman to die. I think it's and they spin that then as, so they create the problem and then blame the problem on Donald Trump or the pro-life movement.
Exactly. And they use it to justify all trimester abortion. The Democrats can't draw any limit whatsoever. And they use this as their talking point because they know they can't justify that. This is the only way, politically and based on what polling shows, that they can get their way on the issue of abortion. And so they lie, and by lying, they put women in danger.
Yeah, I mean, this from a PR point of view, I mean, I think it's a huge dilemma though, because the simplicity of the advertising, the simplicity of their message, the power of it and unfortunately, as I said, the answer is nuanced. Your answer is quite a nuanced, sophisticated answer. And it's unfair. It's extremely unfair, but it worries me a lot because we have these 11 ballot and potentially 11 ballot initiatives in 10 states, and I think, and you will know this better than me. I think it's $360 million that Kamala Harris is going to spend on those ads, with the sinister music and all of that, and then with these individual cases that are highlighted. How are you going to answer that similarly, if you know what I mean? What similar simple message can you come out with that will hit those on the head?
Yeah, I think, it's hard. It's hard to combat that, like you said, but I think of the message that we are telling people. We're in 8 battleground states right now. We've got a field team in 8 states, and we're really focused on the voters in those states right now. I think our message to them is just very simply, this is what Kamala and the Democrats will do if they win the election. They will pass a law banning states from having pro-life protections, and they will mandate every state has all trimester abortion all across this country.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very unpopular because at least 2/3 of Americans, according to poll after poll, want a limit on abortion after the first trimester. And people just aren't aware that that's where the Democrats are at. And it's kind of surprising sometimes how unaware people are. But when we bring that up, people change their minds. They reconsider.
But you see how the ABC moderator interrupts. This is it's an essential part of the Democrat playbook is to not let people know this truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And it's supported, though. I mean, it's also supported very well by the ballot measures and the language of the ballot measures, which uses, again, and of course they're very, I mean, I think you could create a whole dictionary, by the way, of euphemistic terms that are used by the pro-abortion side. Product of conception, for God's sake. But in the ballot measures, it's things like reproductive freedom and women's reproductive freedom, which of course sounds great, but what they don't say is access to abortion for all 9 months. And of course they don't say that because exactly as you say, the public are not in favor of that. But the public will vote, though, in favor of women's reproductive health. So it's a very unfair battle, by the way, particularly when the mainstream media are backing up this euphemistic, cloudy language that won't reveal the truth, actually, that won't reveal and won't tell the truth to people about what they're actually proposing. I mean, I'm kind of surprised. Talk to me a little bit about Colorado, because I'm just curious about Colorado. I'm just completely gobsmacked. So Colorado already has this extraordinarily liberal situation. They have Warren Herron there, who would do an abortion at 9 months for any reason, and he said it in the Atlantic, and he's fairly, he's super open about it. It's not enough, though. It's not enough for the people. It's not enough for the Planned Parenthood of Colorado. It's not enough. What do they want? So what do they want to do to add to that? What do they want to do?
Yeah, I would say, we've got Colorado, you've got Maryland, and a couple of other kind of blue states that could have this on the ballot. And I think essentially what it is this is them trying to scheme to try to get more turnout for their Democrat candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And they think that this will help them in a state like Colorado, because you're right. It doesn't essentially change the status quo where they allow abortion at any point, and there's an abortionist bragging to media about it. And so I guess SBA, we're really focused on the 6 red states where there is some sort of pro-life protection in place, whether it's as modest as Arizona's at 15 weeks or it's as great as South Dakota's at life at conception, because that's really where the lives will be lost if these measures pass. And so we're very focused on those and those measures that are winnable for us.
Yeah, no, and I mean, it's we, the very best of luck. I mean, we're all working on I mean, people just need at least let people vote knowing the truth. I think
Yeah.
this is kind of the thing that's really challenging. I mean, it's amazing talking to people and realizing people have no idea. People do not know that it is legal to have an abortion at 9 months. I don't think a lot of people in Colorado know it, by the way. I think there are people in Colorado who know it, but I think they're the minority. And in New Mexico and in Vermont and in, all those places. What is it? How many states is it now? I think it's 10.
Mhm.
10 and the District of Columbia,
Yeah.
where you can have an abortion up to 9 months. And I think people genuinely don't know. I think that's one of the most important things. I used to suggest when we were doing the Gosnell movie and starting to think about this and just being shocked at the knowledge we acquired because we didn't know it and we got this sudden education. And I thought I remember saying to people like Marjorie, I don't know whether or not there shouldn't be billboards up in states saying, Did you know you can have an abortion legally up to 9 months here in Colorado? And I know that sounds like an advertisement, but in some ways, I just don't know if people would be like, there's no way that's true. Because I don't think people know. I really don't think people know. And I think the other thing that's interesting, and I mean, where else in the world do laws like the laws, for example, in Colorado and Vermont, where else, and Oregon, where else do those laws, New Mexico, where else do they exist in the world? I mean, obviously China, right?
Right.
Canada?
We're one of the countries that allows it. Yeah, I believe Canada. We're only one of 8.
One of
and
8.
It's never good to be on the same list as China.
No. And I think North
North Korea.
Korea is in there as well. And I think it's an interesting thing. And I know I've seen other people make this point, and I think it's a really good point, is, a lot of Americans, particularly liberal Americans, progressive Americans, would be always looking at Europe as so fantastic. And Europe, very, very far ahead on stuff. Like, the European laws are kind of shockingly conservative compared to what we have here.
We're totally misaligned from Europe. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even simple things like, for example, Germany, which I mean, I think read it yesterday. There is compulsory counselling, like you just can't imagine that, right? Being here, but it's like, yeah. Anyway, those laws are much more conservative. But again, I don't think anyone knows that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Kelsey, please, we'll be coming back to you, no doubt, in the run up to November. It's something we're not going to take our eye off.
Yes.
It's something very important. It's one of the most important. It's probably the most important issue of our times and of this election. So please come back on the show. Keep us up to date.
Yes, please keep us up to date if any developments.
How
please.
can people find you? How can people on social media, etc.?
Yeah, so our website is sbaprolife.org, and you can find me on X. It's Kelsey_Pritch. Kelsey, KELSEY _PRITCH.
And we'll put that up on the screen.
Yes.
So people can take it down.
So that's the end of the podcast for today. Thank you for coming. Thanks for listening. And we just want to say thank you for all our listeners. You can donate to October7theplay.com, October7theplay.com. And we want to say hello to Mike again, our number one best fan at the moment. Hope you enjoyed the show, Mike. And see you next week. Bye.
Bye.